Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is our fifth weekly overview about the markets, which they are in turmoil. They are down 1,121 points, just over 50% of their strength in just 50 days, which is 30 days of trading more or less, the worst start in 30 years. The BDI closed earlier on at 1,106 points, up 9 since yesterday and up 15 from the last week. That's a very good sign, if I may say so, despite the fact that during the week they were a bit even further down. Are we going to see a market below the 1,000 points? That's the wonder. The Cape size and the Panamax sizes with the respective indexes, they were down. These two indexes, and in particular the Cape size, they drive the markets up. The BCI was down 3 points to 1,554, but the overall it was down from last week's 1,588. That's down 34 points. Panamaxes too were on a downtrend with 1,311. But overall they were up 7 points. The BCI and the BHSI are the two indexes that they make headlines. As you recall, they were on a dropping spree, let's call it, but now they're coming up. So the BSHI closed at 998 points, up 33, and the BHSI was up 3 points to 671. That again is another 69 points for the BSI from last week and 674 of the BHSI from last week again. Now, floods, earthquakes, with the wet weather and the floodings et al., the worst market too was even, depicted in the Baltic Dirty Dye Index, which was down at 818 points. Minus 11 from yesterday and minus 48 since last week's 886 points. The cleans were up 3 points to 596. That was a good point, but still. Two more issues we have to make this point. We heard at the BBC a report about the state of the market, a very comprehensive report, but I dare say that in 2008, where there is a reference on the report, I was the first one in writing to warn the world not just of the dropping of the Baltic Dry Index, but of the world economy at large. I'm sorry, I was the first. Having said so, I have to pay honor to Jim Davis's prediction for caution to avoid the overspree to build new building vessels, which created this overcapacity. Jim Davis has been always right on this particular issue. Now, today, the supposed movers and shakers of the industry, they are on the wrong path and they have to come to their senses before they destroy further the markets. The issue of floodings. Sorry guys, in 2014, there's no excuse. Not excuse at all for the people in the west, for example, of the British Islands, Wales, England, particular the southwest, the floodings, the River Thames. There is no excuse whatsoever. No excuse whatsoever. It's not the same, of course, like earthquakes. But here they had ample time to prepare the barriers and all means to avoid this situation. It's a dreadful situation. Earthquakes, well, poor people in Cephalonia, for nearly now 10 days, they are in a big mess. Nobody can see what's below there, the big tectonic plates of the Ionian Sea, which gave the famous earthquakes in 1954. Well, I don't know whether Captain Corelli's mandolin can even produce something to ease these people over there who are suffering and are having a very hard time in the middle of the winter, like the people of the United Kingdom with the floodings and the strong winds. Other issues, of course, the most important third issue is at Hard Talk during the week at the BBC, where We had the Prime Minister from the Cayman Islands at the famous How Talk with the presenter Stephen Sacker. A very important issue indeed. Here is the big question of tax havens and whether people are using it properly, and if this is right or wrong, you know, and what is President Barack Obama's view on this issue. Well, if President Obama had a view about Cayman Islands, so did the Premier, explaining to Mr. Sacker what happens in Delaware and with Delaware corporations, which we know very well ourselves in the shipping industry, something which I have come across myself. So all things being equal, if companies in the tax havens are operating perfectly and ethically, nobody should touch them. Come on, you know what I mean. If on the other hand, a Czech finds out that there is money laundering or whatever there, or tax evasion, yes, the worst of punishment. But if everything works in order, why you should like to shake it now? Whom interest are you trying to defend, and whose interest you're trying to destroy? That's a very, very important issue. Down in Piraeus, whereas you know, again, and in continuation of this issue of the tax havens, let's call it, you know, with respective, of course, flags of convenience. I call them flags of necessity. You all remember my 2004 speech at the building of Lloyd's Register, where I was invited by the Royal Institution of Naval Arts Marine Engineers, and I explained to the world to understand there are no flags of convenience, there are flags of necessity. And again, you know what I mean. Here in Greece, the Greek shipowners president, the Union of Greek shipowners president, Theodore Veniamis, in his annual speech at the annual general meeting, he referred to the backtracking of the Greek government, who accepted the unsolicited support in paying 3 times more over the taxation levels of the Greek shipowners. Now the Greek government, the current Greek government, the coalition of a shame, I call it, and I have to, you know, I provoke them if they like to come to a dialogue to discuss this, they're having second thoughts. This is not on. And having said so, the Ministry of Economy is run by an academic, which I have met him. He left me very good views, but he must come to his senses. He must realize he cannot attack simultaneously the shipowning community and the seafarers. Both sides. You got old people, pensioners, that they suffer with the cats. So, at the end of the day, there won't be people going at sea. The shipping business is the business that gives jobs to people, and in particular Greece, after the Second World War and the Civil War, the Greeks went at sea and they flourished, and the whole thing changed in Greece for the benefit of all Greeks. Why destroy it? And ironically, yes, I have to play a bit of irony, Mr. Stournaras, the current minister, he must change the inscription outside his ministry. He is claiming there will be surplus this year. We will be pleased to see that. Of course, this is milking out the Greek public and the pensioners in particular. He must change it. It's not the Ministry of Shipping there. You know, it happened the same thing downtown in Piraeus at the new building ministry, where the 2 ministers from the same socialist who have failed despite the overwhelming majority of 167 MPs out of 300 in a parliament, they couldn't come together, put their senses, and make the new title of the ministry. So, Mr. Stournaras, will you please change that Constitution Square, the inscription outside your ministry? This is a very important issue. In Greece, the country is heading for a double election, the local election and the European elections. I'm afraid national elections, general elections, are looming in the background. Not a nice thing, really not a nice thing. And if there was a strong and proper opposition, of course this government, this coalition, which used to be a threesome, excuse my French, you know, it should go home. Now, lastly, we must remember that the whole Mediterranean is in turmoil. A few hours ago, the Italian Prime Minister, Mr. Letta, has resigned, and possibly the mayor of Florence is going to be asked to form a new government. These are very important issues. Turkey, again, is in tatters. And don't forget, I'm coming back to Italy. Italy is a country that belongs to the G7, G8 group, if you like to include Russia there, and there are more governments in comparison with years after the Second World War. It's a very important issue. Okay, this is what the former Italian Prime Minister Silvio Berlusconi was claiming, that he broke every record and changed, if he could, the course of history of Italian governments in his time. Of course, we have to see that Turkey, as I said, is in a big mess there, very big mess, and we have said that in the summer. You know, in June we have stated that, we make a prognosis, Turkey is not standing properly. Egypt too, and Syria too, so, you know, and then of course all this area, as we have stated in various reports, has the epidemic of having the immigrants coming from all these countries to Europe. The press here must be very careful, because in my view they're trying to change the attention of the international public, in particular the public of Europe and the Mediterranean, in showing what is happening to various issues with immigrants, legal or illegal, whether they want asylum or whatever. That's a very important point. So I like this to mention, to stop doing the wrong things. And lastly, in Germany, we just heard a few hours ago that the agricultural minister, Mr. Hans-Peter Friedrich, has resigned after the allegations that he breached confidentiality during an inquiry into child pornography, according to the German media. I would like also, as a last thing, to see the Greek Justice and the Greek Ministry of Economy move firmly and, you know, to finalize all this mess that we are suffering. And the big question that I have been asked by many people around is that how come the people who are being asked to lodge money to be free, they can find 2, 5, 10, 100 million euros so they can be freed until they go to court. With this, I wish everybody, on another tone, happy Valentine's Day. And you know, love is something which creates different things and put people back together. There should be love for our neighbor, love in the family, love in the business, love for everything. So all you need is love. Thank you very much. This is John FARACLAS from allaboutshipping.co.uk on Valentine's Day 2014. Over and bye-bye.